my account here. And then you also get to choose whether you're logging into a production, developer, or sandbox organization by selecting the drop-down menu. And then you can simply log in. Now, if you do not have whitelisted, if you have not whitelisted our IP address for this website, you would also need the security token tacked onto the password. So please keep that in mind. I have white-labeled the SkyVisualEditor Studio's IP address, and therefore I do not need the security token. So I'll go ahead and log in. And now it's going to give me access to the full studio to work with. So we're going to cover, in this month, we're going to cover how to set up and create a form inside of Salesforce. So there are many times whenever we have customers or prospects who will come to us and say, we have some kind of form that we maintain outside of Salesforce today, and then we have to enter the data into Salesforce after we retrieve the form and have filled it out by hand. So this leads to a lot of duplicate data work that has to be done, one on a physical piece of paper and then one inside of Salesforce. And it's just silly to do it twice. So they're looking for ways of creating that exact same object or the exact same data input inside of Salesforce. The problem is, if a user or a person is used to working with a physical piece of paper and its specific layout, then switching to Salesforce can sometimes be very difficult if it doesn't look similar. It can be an adoption problem. And so that's what we're going to be addressing today, is helping recreate that exact same look and feel of the form inside of Salesforce to help your users feel more comfortable with the data entry of that information. So to get that done, I'm going to go to File, click New. Then on the second, selectable thing inside of the Layout Manager is going to be the free layout. Now, this free layout allows you to select any object that you'd like. So we're going to choose, in my case, a custom object that I've created, and we'll go ahead and click OK. Now, what this is going to allow me to do is it's going to give me a completely blank canvas to place anything I want on the page. To give you a brief overview of how this is set up, on the left-hand side is going to be the component palette where you can make visual changes to the canvas. You can drag things onto the canvas and make any changes you need. The right-hand side will be the page property panels, where you can select an icon on the canvas and then toggle their properties on the right-hand side. To get what I need done inside of Salesforce, I have loaded in a 1040 easy tax form. So that's what we're going to be working with today. So instead of a user going and filling out a physical tax form by hand on pen and paper, we're now going to be taking that pen and paper and putting it right into Salesforce. I have done this by taking that PDF, putting it into Salesforce, and it is a static resource inside of my Salesforce organization. Now, once it's a static resource inside of my Salesforce org, I can scroll down to the bottom. There is a section called Background. I can expand that and click the ellipsis. Now, this is going to pull in all of the different static resources that are inside of my Salesforce environment. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and choose my 1040 easy form that I've put inside of Salesforce. And now it's going to load that document as a background image onto my canvas. Now, the center of the canvas that we're seeing in the middle of the screen, this is a WYSIWYG environment. So what you see on the canvas is exactly how this is going to look when we deploy it into the Salesforce environment. So let me take a step back. Let's go into my Salesforce org. This is currently what my object looks like whenever I'm working with it inside of Salesforce. So this is a record that I have created right here where I have a couple of the fields that are designed to be on that 1040 easy tax form. And when I click Edit, it's going to look just like it would in the normal Salesforce environment. So we now want to set this up so that instead of it looking like the standard Salesforce input, again, it's going to look like that tax form. So keep in mind, that's the end goal. So now that I have the tax form as the background, what I need to do is resize this. And just go ahead and resize it to something that makes a little more sense here. And as you can see, there is the full form on the page. So we'll make a couple of quick changes. First thing I need to point out is that there is no save button or cancel button on the page. This is by design. There are many times where a form will have, a logical place where you want to put a next button or a save button, and it usually is not necessarily at the top. It could be at the bottom of the form whenever users are done inputting the data, or it could be an item somewhere inside of the form. So we give you flexibility in choosing where you put that. So I need to go to my component palette on the left-hand side, scroll down to the button section, grab the Save button, drag it onto my canvas. Now in my case, I don't care where the Save button is going to go, so I'm just going to put it at the top. Now I'm going to put the Cancel button onto the page as well. We'll just go ahead and put that right next to my Save button. If you notice they're slightly off, I'm pretty melancholy about this, so I'm going to change them so they have the exact same height. When I select the Cancel button, on the right-hand side, you should see a series of properties that have now shown up. Now, as I mentioned, you can move the buttons anywhere you'd like on the page, and this is because we move them around based on pixel location. So I can get very specific and say that I want it at the exact same height as the Save button, and there they go. We're now in alignment. Well, that's nice, but we also need to be able to fill the form out. We have it as a background, but the fields themselves are not editable. Just because we have the name on the page doesn't mean that it's going to be an editable field inside of Salesforce. So the way we get that done is by selecting the first tab on the left called Object. Halfway down the screen on the left-hand side, you're going to see a series of fields. These fields come from the primary object that I've imported into our tool. In this case, it was my 1040 Easy custom object that I've imported. So now what I'm going to do is drag these fields from the left-hand side onto the canvas. You can think of this as an image that we're then going to overlay the fields on top of the image to give it a visual representation that the user is still filling out that form. It's going to be exactly what we're doing. So we're going to take the first name, and I'm going to drag it onto the canvas inside of the first name block. And then I'm going to resize this so it fits the full first name section. And then I'm going to take the last name and drop that onto the canvas as well. And then we'll resize this to fit the canvas. So we'll just do this for a couple of others, and then I will show you what it looks like when we actually create this page and have it fully deployed. We can do this for spouse. Change this to meet the full ratio. Same with the last name. Now this is going to be probably the most tedious part about designing a page, is just getting everything set up to fit the form, but having the flexibility is quite nice to be able to do this. So we'll go into the home address, resize this to fit, and then the apartment number. All right, so I think you kind of get the picture. You would just go through and fill out the form as you would need. You can even have it set up to where you can fill out the right-hand side over here where you have a series of data entry points. So as an example, I can take line 1, put it as my input here. I can take line 2, put that as my input, and then line 3. So again, the user is going to be inputting data just like they would on the standard tax form. So let me get that alignment right. 27. And it's going to be just like the input. Now we already have the Save button on the canvas, so I won't worry about that. And we have a couple of fields on the page, so that looks good. And now the last thing that we need to do is to be able to put this inside of the Salesforce environment for the user to work with. So what I now need to do is deploy it into the organization. To get this done, you can simply click File, Deploy, or there's a Quick Deploy button at the top of the page. So I can just go ahead and click the little deploy icon. It's going to ask you which of these environments you're in. Now we do this based on the code coverage requirements that are inside of Salesforce. So we provide all of the code coverage that you need to actually put in the Salesforce systems. So there's a 75% code coverage requirement that Salesforce has on the Apex controller. We do provide that. The difference between these two environments is that whenever you're putting Apex classes into production, then Salesforce has a requirement that it does a full sweep of all of the different test classes when you go through their APIs. So that's the difference. If you don't want to test other applications' Apex classes, in case they don't necessarily have full test coverage, I would suggest putting these pages inside of Sandbox and then migrating them over to your production environment so you don't have those hangups. So just a brief explanation of those. So we'll go ahead and click deploy. Again, I am in a developer environment, so I don't need to care about that. Now what it's actually doing is it's saving it as an XML file so that in case you want to store and maintain our files or our pages in some kind of third-party repository, you're able to do that so that you can house and maintain the different versions of the pages over time. It also went ahead and created the raw Visualforce code and the Apex controller and its test classes and put them inside of your Salesforce environment. Now, I did not rename these, and so you'll notice here that they have a very standard naming convention, which is SVE _ and then today's date timestamp. So we'll go ahead and click Open. And since this is deployed right into our Salesforce environment, we are able to work with the raw data. So I'm going to go ahead and create a test one here just so you can see. So we'll go ahead and click Tony Nelson. We'll put my wife's name in here, and then home address. So as you can see, we're just going through, and it will give that user the exact same experience of filling out a physical form, even though this is the Salesforce environment. Now we're going to go through and just add in a couple of extra things. We'll say that this is 150,000. We'll say that we paid more than that, and we'll leave that alone. So now we need to go ahead and save this. So we'll go ahead and click Save. And it should take us back to the standard Salesforce page. Well, this is fine, and the reason for that is because we have not overridden any of the views. And to prove this, whenever I click Edit again, I won't have the Salesforce page that I just created. So where does it go? How do I work with that? The way we do it is, now that the page is actually deployed into your environment, you now need to override a Salesforce view. To get this done, go to Setup. In my case, this is a custom object. So I need to go to Create, but if this was a standard object of any kind, you would go to Customize. Outside of that, everything else should be pretty similar in terms of navigating to the right place. You go to Object, select the custom object that you're going to be working with. Now, this is where it gets to be the exact same thing you need to look out for, whether it's a standard object or if it's a custom object you're making. You need to navigate to the section that is the Button, Links, and Actions. This is where you get to override the different views that Salesforce has by default with Visualforce pages. So today what I want to do is override the Edit page so that anytime a user edits a 1040 Easy record in my Salesforce environment, they see that document, the 1040 Easy document that I just created. So to get this done, there's an Edit view. So we'll go ahead and edit that one. And now we need to override with a Visualforce page, and there's my Visualforce. So as you can see, I have a couple of them in there. It may be wise to rename these to something more practical. Let's see, today's date is the 12th, and I want this one here. Okay, so we'll go ahead and click Save. So now that I have it saved, I can actually go back to my records, select one of these records, and the detail screen will still be the same because I did not modify that. Select one of these. And now that I have this, let me go back to the other one, select the record I just created here. Now that I have this record opened, I can click Edit, and we should see the Visualforce page that we've now created. So this is a real quick example from start to finish how you not only create a page from scratch, but how you deploy the page and how you assign it to a various view that you may need. Now, in case you have different times where you need to assign certain profiles to look at certain views based on profile or even based on record type, instead of having to code that snippet of information, that logic in there, what you can do is create that directly inside of our tool. So the way you get that done is by opening our studio again. You would click File, go to New. There is another page layout inside of our tooling. I believe it is to the left this time, and it's going to be the page assignment. So now you select the object that you'd like to assign the different properties with. Rename this to page assignment. Click OK. And now it's going to give you a visual prompter to be able to assign all of the different page layouts all the different record types based on profile. So in this case, for the 1040 Easy record, I only have one record type, and because of that, I now get to select which profile gets to see whatever I'd like. By default, it's the standard page layout that comes with it, but I would like the standard user to be able to see for the new and edit. I want them to have that Visualforce page that I just made, so we'll go ahead and select that right here. Go ahead and click OK. And then whenever I click OK and then deploy this page into Salesforce, I then would have the ability to have whatever users override and see specific screens if you'd like them to see different screens, or to have certain fields hidden based on pages, layout, or something of that nature. So one thing we'll cover real fast. Let me open up the other page really briefly, and we'll cover another quick item. There are many times whenever companies will come to us and say, great, we now have this form in place. I'm glad we got to input this, but now we need a way of creating some kind of PDF for this page. How do we create a PDF for this page? Well, it's fairly simple to get that done. Inside of our tool, once you have the page opened and already finished the formatting and the layout, there is a section called PDF on the right-hand side. You can go ahead and expand that, and there is now a checkbox to say Render as PDF. So go ahead and click OK, or the checkbox. You then get to select whatever formatting styles you'd like on there, and then you can save this and redeploy it as a page. And typically what you would have is from the detail page, so let me cancel this one. From the detail page here, you would typically have some kind of button or link that would then take you to the PDF page that you have now created with our tooling. So to show you what that is going to look like, we'll go ahead and redeploy this page here. Give this one a different name. PDF. Click deploy. And now it's going to go through the exact same process. You package up the file as XML, save that in our database so you can use it, and then we now will send out the SVE PDF to your Salesforce environment to work with. So as you can see, this is going to be the PDF with no information inside of it. Why? Because I'm not pointing to a record at the moment. To point to a record, I will just quickly show you what that's like. Let me go up here to the top. Grab this record's ID. Okay. Let me see if I can get that one. And then we'll do ID. Oh, I'm sorry. I did not change those to output fields. My apologies. Okay, so as you can see, one mistake that I just made, input fields do not show up in PDF. So one quick change I need to make is I need to turn all of the input fields into output fields real fast. So instead of having you recreate the page, one thing that we'll do is we'll go to Tools, and then we'll go to Convert, and then it's going to give us a new page. We'll go ahead and click OK. And now it's going to take all of the input fields and it's going to translate them into output fields. So as you can see, I haven't made any changes, but the fields that are on the page now look different. They have the name inside of them. They have the green border around them. Those are display-only fields. You can choose whether you're putting display-only fields or input fields onto the canvas. This is done by the left-hand side, selecting the input or the output. And then based on that, you'll get to have either input fields or output fields. So now that I have this done, we can verify that it is rendered as PDF. Yes, it is. So we'll go ahead and import that into the Salesforce environment. My apologies for that. And we'll go through that one more time. Just close out of that one. All right. So now we can go ahead and open this. And now this is going to take me to the blank page. And now I can add in the ID. All right, so there's all the fields. In this case, this is the first record that I had created. And as you can see, I have the first name, the last name, and all that information filled out from my test record. So that's just another real quick example of how to set it up as a PDF in case you need to ever render something as a PDF with our tooling. You can do that. You're also able to go in and style different pages and then display them as PDFs if you have to do that. So with that, that was all I had planned to cover in today's webinar. I'm going to go ahead and open it up to questions. If you'd like, you can either unmute yourself and ask the question verbally, or you can open up the chat window and type in your question.